Hey all, welcome to this week's episode of the Shut Up Get Up podcast. I'm your host, Mike Muldoon, and thanks for joining. Today we're gonna talk about something. I don't know. We're gonna go with this. Hopefully you get something from it. Try to follow me. I think I'm gonna be able to hammer it. I think I'm gonna be able to bring it home. But just stay with me on this one, and I promise I'll keep it short and as always to the point. So, every day, I've got to look at social media, right? Because quite frankly, I'm on it and I've got to share and, kind of do my marketing part of everything. And sometimes people hit me up on things and responding and whatever. So, and I sometimes fall into the abyss of flipping through, seeing what's going on. And, but if you notice on social media, especially a lot on Instagram, you come across a lot of these people, right? It's like, I built my successful company. I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to turn your income and make it 7 figures. Or, you got the guy with the shirt off and he's, sitting there and he's got this great body and he's shredded and he's talking about how he's going to take your body. And if you follow his workouts, you're going to look like this. And, I don't know these people, and there's a pretty good chance that, they probably know what they're doing. And, maybe they'll make you look that way. But I sometimes think about people like this. And again, I don't know these people, so I'm not going after them. I'm just using it as an example. But sometimes I realize, people get so caught up in an identity of something that I wonder, like that guy who's going to change your life and get you that 7-figure income, who's got the confidence, maybe the ego behind it to drive you to get there. What would happen if he lost all his money? And then I think about the guy with the shirt off and he's shredded and he's talking about how you're going to look like him. What happens if that guy got fucking fat? And that's what we're going to talk about. Now, let me start by saying I don't wish any of those guys to get fat. I don't wish any of those guys to lose their money. But what I'm talking about here is one word: identity. And as human beings, we tend to immerse ourselves in certain things because it becomes an identity. It becomes what's important to us. It becomes this thing that we show to the world. And a lot of time it could be things that really don't matter in terms of who we are. So when I say, if you got that person who's so gung-ho about this is my body and I look good, I always wonder, well, what happens if that guy got fat? And I don't mean that in a bad, what happens if that guy one day suddenly suffered an injury, something happened and he couldn't work out? All of a sudden, he's down on the couch, he's out for 8 to 10 weeks, he puts on 15, 20 pounds, he's a little depressed, he's eating the ice cream, he's watching reruns on Netflix. What would happen to that guy's psyche when all of a sudden he can't identify as, look at me, I'm a shredded guy with a great shirt and everybody wants to look like me? It's the same thing with somebody who has a lot of money. What happens, a lot of times, people have a lot of money, it brings a lot of power, brings a lot of influence. But what happens when that money is gone or say disappeared? Then how would that affect their identity when all of a sudden they can't project to the world that I've got money, I've got power, I've got influence? How does that affect them? When your identity is tied up in something that can actually be taken away from you. And that's what I'm trying to talk about today, is that it's so important that you ground your identity in just being comfortable with who you are, right? So what I'm saying here is that, and again, your identity, let me back this up too. Your identity doesn't just have to be around fitness. It doesn't have to be around money. Some people's identities are based around their jobs. Some people love being in what they're doing and they love telling people in it. They got a great job and it's an awesome job. They're VP, they're CEO, they're CFO. They run this, they do this. And And even though it's great and they love what they're doing, but sometimes that becomes their identity. Same thing with relationships. We see this sometimes with people in relationships, right? They only date the beautiful guy, the beautiful girl, the person who has this person, because their identity is, they surround themselves with these beautiful people. But what happens when those people leave? And what happens when that job goes away? What are you left with? And that's what I'm trying to talk about today. What are you left with when your identity gets down to you suddenly just having to be comfortable with just being you? So a lot of times identity starts off with there's always a why in everything we do, but identity really starts off with this question that maybe we don't even realize we're asking ourselves subconsciously, but what would other people think about me if I didn't have ... What would other people think about me? Now, again, you may not be sitting around pondering this like, I wonder what people would think about me if I did. A lot of times it just becomes subconscious. You don't even realize that that's what's driving you. But for many people, that's the motivating factor behind what they're doing. Like, what would people think about me if suddenly I didn't have an 8-pack, but I was just down to a 4? What would people think about me if I didn't have this job? What would people think about me if I didn't have this money? What would people think about me if my kids didn't go to this school? What would people think about me if all of a sudden I had to take a lesser job? What would people think about me if I started dating somebody who maybe wasn't the normal person I date? What would people think about me? And that tends to be what I see as a driving force behind why they do certain things. Now, don't get me wrong. There are people who are very successful, have very good, their identity in themselves is rooted in the right spot. There are people who love fitness and their identity of who they are at the core of who they are. If they've lost it all, is still good. They love fitness. So I'm not saying anybody who's obsessive with anything has an identity challenge here, but I'm saying for most people, I think that when it comes down and when they really ask themselves why they do what they do, a lot of it is going to be, well, what would other people think if I didn't do it? And that kind of turns back to a lot of things. What we talk about here a lot of times, we are influenced by the thoughts of others towards us. And that kind of shapes our identity and the actions and the course of a life that we might take, because again, we want to be concerned about what other people are thinking about us. Confusing, right? But ultimately, the real question you really have to ask yourself is, what if this went away? What if I put on weight? What if I lost that job? What if I left that job? What if I didn't do this? What if I didn't do that? What if I didn't? What would I think of myself? And sit with that for a second. Take it away from other people. Not what would people think about me if I'm no longer the CEO of a company? What would people think about if I walked into a room right now and I just told them, you know what, I'm going to stop doing this. I'm going to do it. But think about, what would I think about myself? And if you sit there and you think about that question, you might not realize things aren't as strong or, as tough as you think they are. Because there's a lot of stress and anxiety living for other people. There's a lot of stress and anxiety living for other people. And we do this so often on a subconscious level. A lot of times we don't realize, thinking the things we're doing, the jobs we take, the habits we have sometimes, the courses we do, whatever it is, all has to do with some way inside us. It is a constant, well, what would people think if I wasn't doing that? Well, what would people think if I wasn't this person? What would my neighbors think? We always have this saying about keeping up with the Joneses. Well, the Joneses, what would they think if I didn't buy a new car? What would the Joneses think if I didn't put a pool in my backyard? When realistically, the question should be, what would you think about yourself if you didn't have a pool in the backyard? On a personal level, I've been working on myself for a really long time, so I'm not really bothered by much. I like to think I have a pretty good sense of who my identity is at my core. I've been broke and I've had money. I've been both sides of the equation, and I'm still pretty much the same guy. I'm probably a little bit more knowledgeable about what I'm doing, but for the most part, and it's funny because personally, me, I do pretty well, and but I drive a 2011 Hyundai Sonata. When we moved back from the UK, I needed a car. I just went to a dealership. I hate car payments, and I bought a cheap car. I said, give me your cheapest car, and I bought it. And she's been good to me. She's got 134,000 miles on it. I'm starting to feel some things though. Driving along, I'm hearing clink, 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 clink. Things are moving around on the car. I don't even know what it is, man. But it drives, and my push button doesn't work on the car. So now I got to open up my console. I got to jam a key in there. I got to use the backup start mechanic. But I don't care. But it's funny because I work with a lot of people, and they always go, Michael, you can afford it. You can afford a new car. Why don't you just buy one? And I said, I don't know. I just don't want to get one. I don't need it. I mean, I don't really drive much anyway, but I just, I would sit there and I would think about it. As long as my wife and my kids are in a safe car, I'm good. My car's fine for me. But then what I realized is, when people are saying stuff like that to me, it's really a reflection of their identity. Meaning what they're really saying to me is, Michael, why don't you go buy a new car because you can afford it? They're really saying, Michael, I would not drive that car. And if I was you, I would buy a new car because I would not be comfortable driving around in a 2011 Hyundai Sonata with 134,000 miles on it. And I noticed that a lot of people I'm around, they drive very nice cars. They drive, and that's good. I guess ultimately I'm just not a car guy, but I guess what I'm saying is, for me personally, and again, you're looking at about 15 years of work here, I'm at a point where I don't base my decisions or my choices or my course of action or even my life on what will they think about me. I just think, well, what do I think about myself? There's a chance I'll probably go buy another car someday, but I'll do it because I want to do it, not because I feel compelled to do it because somebody's, I'm worried about what people are thinking. So in a very long way about this, what I'm really saying is, number one, that you really should make sure that you are comfortable with just being you, that whatever you had, if it all went away today, well, I guess I got to be careful with that. I mean, I don't want to talk about loss here. I mean, I'm not talking about loss. Sometimes we lose things, we lose family, we lose people. I'm not talking about that here. I'm just talking about little things that we tend to get, wrapped up in. If the money went away today, if the fitness went away today, if the position went away today, if all these things went away, you should still feel comfortable with who you are and be able to raise your head to the rest of the world and not feel ashamed about it or not feel like you're not good enough about it. So I get back to what I was talking about earlier. I just wonder. And that's all it was. It was just a wonder when I was looking at social media when, guys ripping off his shirt and he's doing these pull-ups with, I don't even know, his toes or whatever it is. And he's talking about, I'm going to make you this. I just can't help to wonder, well, if that guy couldn't do that, who is that guy? Like if that guy put on 150 pounds, is he cool? Like with himself? I'm not saying you have to be happy. I'm not saying, he has to put on 100 and be, I'm so happy with myself. But is he comfortable with who he is as a person? Doesn't mean he might not want to get back to where he was or what he's doing, but is he comfortable with who he's a person? And that guy who's promising you all this money and he's talking about how he scaled his company, he's made $50 million, if he lost it all, is he just still comfortable being the person that he is? Because inside of us, we all have gifts, we all have talents, we all have something to offer the world. Now, maybe it's not something on that's real sexy, power, prestige, fame, notoriety, but we all have something to offer. And when we get down to basically a point where we can just be comfortable with having a lot or a little, or, being in great shape or not great shape, or being bald or not being bald, or, whatever it is, when you just get comfortable being you, that's the true sense of, I think, being. That is the true sense of being, because when you're comfortable with you and you're not worried about, what are they thinking? What do they think? When you're comfortable with you, you're going to present in a way that you're going to just make everybody else around you feel comfortable about being them. Because let's face it, there's a lot of work and a lot of energy required to live up to other expectations when your identity especially is wrapped up in it. So 14 minutes later, I guess ultimately what we came here to talk about on this night was simply the best thing you can do is get comfortable being in a place where the only thing you have to offer is you. Whew. Hope I got that one. Gosh. Anyway, thanks again, guys, for tuning in for this, my Shut Up Get Up podcast. Again, try to keep it short, to the point. I look forward to your questions, your comments. Please follow along at Mike Muldoon LC on Instagram, Mike Muldoon LC on Facebook, MikeMuldoonLC.com on my website if you want to, learn a little bit more about me and what I have to offer. And as always, I'm wishing you all having a great weekend. It's St. Patrick's Day weekend. Be safe, be careful. And I want to just tell you, whatever you're doing, whoever you are great and you are good enough already. Get up.